Hey, it's Tamie M of TamieMCoaching.com, empowerment life coach and creator of the Freedom Class. And what I want to talk to you about today is successful dating after narcissistic abuse. Now, before I begin this video, I just want to quickly announce that we have a few spots available in the calendar this week for the free one-to-one consult with either myself or a member of my team for the Freedom Class program. So be sure to stick around till the end of the video to find out exactly what that is and how to enroll and register for your free consult. And with that, let's get started. So let's talk about successful dating after narcissistic abuse. Kind of a tricky subject and very sensitive for a lot of people, but I think it's worth having the conversation because I work with clients every day, I speak to people every day, and one of the things that I notice, not always, but often, one of two things is what's going on. A person manages to extricate themselves from a highly toxic, emotionally abusive, emotionally manipulative, in other words, narcissistically abusive relationship one way or another. And they either go all the way over here where they're hot and heavy in a great big hurry, looking to dive into the next relationship. There is this addictive, compulsive need to find the next, right? Like to find, I'm not okay in my own skin. I can't stand still on my own. And this addictive, compulsive, obsessive drive to find the next, what I would call enmeshment, entanglement, romantic adventure. And then there's the other side of the coin where, you know, I've been so hurt and so harmed and so gaslit and so messed with and so smeared and so devastated and disappointed on every level that I'm tempted to take a vow of celibacy and swear off relationships forever. Like, F it, right? Like it's just easier on my own. And the reality is neither one of those are really healthy or, you know, even remotely ideal, right? Like there's certainly not ideal scenarios, right? So, you know, when we're coming out of a narcissistically abusive relationship, we don't need to take a vow of celibacy and swear off relationships for the rest of our lives in order to protect ourselves. That doesn't serve. Nor should we be in a great big huge hurry to go dive into the next new adventure. Because the reality is, if we've been in a narcissistically abusive relationship, to some degree, there's stuff going on inside of us, not least of which healing the damage that was done in that relationship, but addressing whatever it was that was going on with us to begin with to cause us to be compelled towards an empathy deficient, conscienceless person who fundamentally lacks the tools, the equipment, the ability to love, nurture, care for another individual, right? So if we're compelled towards that type of individual in any way, at any time in our lives, the reality is, like it or not, we've got our own work to do. And, you know, plenty of people will say that's victim bashing and victim shaming. And it's, you know, it's not to say that we're responsible for their abusive attitudes and behavior. If I were blaming you for what someone else did in terms of abusing you, that's victim bashing, that's victim shaming. That's not what I'm talking about. So this isn't about victim bashing or victim shaming, but it is about properly diagnosing an issue so that we can heal it once and for all. It is about putting an appropriate label, for want of a better word, on what the hell is going on with us in our life experience, in our relationship experience, so that we can, you know, make forward progress in the direction of what it is that we really want. You know, we are wired for connection. We are wired for healthy relating in a number of areas, right? Like we're not meant to be loners on this planet. We are social beings, right? So it's very natural that we would want to be coupled, and that we would, and if there's folks out there who, hey, listen, don't want that for your own reasons, like that, this isn't about putting you down or making you wrong at all. If that's where you're at, like, listen, I never wanted to have children. That doesn't make me bad or wrong. That just is what it is. So if you're an individual who's out there saying, look, I really just don't have that drive that everybody else has, like, this isn't about making you bad or wrong, but the vast majority of us do have the desire to enjoy the benefits that go with being coupled in a lasting, happy, healthy, loving, nurturing, safe relationship. Right? And it's, I believe, quite natural that that would be our heart's desire. It is very on purpose, in my opinion, from a spiritual perspective as much as an emotional and psychological perspective, right? Like, there's a lot of benefit that comes from that. But if you're anything like I was for a very long time, if you find yourself stuck in a pattern of repetition, this cycle of repeating dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship dynamics and patterns from unresolved family of origin wounding and trauma, early childhood experiences, working out all your unresolved stuff, one romantic relationship after another. If you find yourself in a situation where you have, to this point, attracted one narcissistic partner after another, and if you're anything like me, often, you'll notice that, like, the next is worse than the last. Not always, because I can think back to someone I was involved with at the age of 19 who was real high spectrum, and then some of them, down the track weren't quite as high spectrum, but there were all these varying flavors of empathy deficiency, emotional manipulation, targeting, projection, controlling, fear-based, all kinds of really unhealthy, toxic stuff that, dishonesty, right? Like all the stuff that goes on in this type of relationship, right? So if you're someone who has a pattern of attracting one after another, and again, you're probably observing often the next seems worse than the last, because that often is the way it goes. Not always, but often. You will certainly want to take a time out at some point in your life to address whatever it is that's going on inside of you that is causing you to be compelled toward, attracted to, as well as so attractive to, right? Like, why are we such a yummy freaking lunch for an empathy deficient, conscienceless, high spectrum, destructive narcissist, or sometimes even people who, have full-blown antisocial personality disorders? What makes us so freaking appealing to that type of individual, and why are we drawn to them like a moth to flame? Vital that we take some time and learn to stand still, to, first of all, figure out what's going on inside of us. What is it that we might have been running from within ourselves all of this time that really I would benefit from dealing with, standing still, facing, standing still, addressing, standing still, feeling the feelings, doing the healing and recovery work, making conscious what is in my subconscious so that I can up-level, heal, and shift all of that stuff. Because the truth is, if you're an individual who has a history, a pattern of attracting empathy deficient, conscienceless, emotional manipulators, high spectrum, toxic, dysfunctional, harmful people, that is not going to change for you, my friend. That is not going to change for you until you stand still and do your own inner work. So, you know, in my own journey, I can look back to, you know, quite a number of years ago now when I got real serious about my own healing and recovery journey, right? Like the truth is, we just get to a place where we just get so sick and tired of being so sick and tired, right? We recognize, man, like there is a repetition compulsion going on here. There's a pattern playing out, and I better, you know, take myself out of the game to some degree to figure out what the heck, if I'm ever going to have a hope in hell of having what it is that, you know, for me personally, I wanted more than anything, which was lasting, happy, healthy love, right? And I was very blessed and very fortunate at the time, as I was, you know, embarking on this deep dive of healing and recovery for myself from, you know, many angles, to be honest with you. But I was working with a brilliant sponsor at the time who, you know, taught me a lot. But, you know, one of the main things I remember her saying to me early in our friendship was, Tamie, you really need to take at least a year. Like at least a year. At the time, you know, that, you know, last relationship I was involved in, and looking back in retrospect, man, you know, like, you know, a lot of sick stuff that had been repressed and suppressed and denied and pushed away and, you know, bypassed, and all of the things that, you know, I was, you know, unwilling or unable to confront and look at and deal with regards to some big family of origin wounding and trauma showed up in this one very sick human being that I was very compelled towards. And, you know, the fallout of that relationship in the end was so painful that, as they say in 12-step recovery, I was willing to go to any lengths. I was willing to go to any lengths. And, you know, I was very coachable at the time. And when she said, you know, Tamie, you know, give yourself at least a year, right? I took her advice, and it was some of the best advice, you know, some of the best advice I've ever been given, right? Like, just take a freaking break already. I'd been dating since I was 14, like, you know, one, you know, relationship, one boyfriend after another, one serious relationship after another, one dating situation after another. How about you take a break and start working on the relationship with yourself? And it was really, really good advice. And to be candid with you, that year turned into quite a number of years, right? And what it was a journey of certainly going inside and doing the hard healing and recovery work and all that involves. But more than anything, it was a journey of reconnecting with myself. It was a journey of healing my relationship with me. In my opinion, the most accurate definition, this is my definition, the way I define codependency, is fundamentally a breakdown in the relationship that we have with ourselves, which then extends to maladaptive, really dysfunctional, sometimes really sick ways of relating to others, right? So if I have a breakdown in the relationship with myself, it's going to be very difficult for me to have anything but a broken down relationship with others, right? Like, I'm going to be operating from some very maladaptive, very dysfunctional, maybe even very sick relationship strategies, without any coping tools, without any real skill set, you know, in you know, working in my favor, right? So that whole journey was really all about healing the relationship with myself. And as I went through this period of what turned into a number of years, quite frankly, after the full year that she suggested that I take to myself, I put my, you know, dipped my toe back into the dating arena. And, you know, very quickly, because I was working so hard at making the unconscious conscious, bringing what was in my subconscious into the light of my conscious awareness, right? And I was working real hard at a recovery program for myself. So I dipped my toe back into the dating arena with this willingness to shine the light of my conscious awareness, take full responsibility for my life experiences and what it is that I'm willing to walk into, put up with, tolerate, settle for, etc. So I dipped my toe back into the dating arena long enough to realize that, like, oh, I still have some work to do. And back to the drawing board I'd go, and I'd take a break, and I'd, travel down the path of healing and recovery and doing the work and all that meant for me, which was many, 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 many things over quite a number of years. But, suffice to say, every now and then I do it again. I dip my toe back into the dating arena, and man, I still have work to do, because what many people don't realize is our outside is a reflection of our inside. 95% of the game of life is subconscious. Only 5% is conscious. So we can get mad at what's showing up in our reality and play victim to that all we want. But the reality is, it may not be our fault that we were handed a bunch of garbage in the first 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of our life. But if we're dragging around a bunch of garbage that we were handed long before we had a say in the matter, by virtue of all kinds of traumatic, abandoning, abusive experiences, all the things that, human beings endure here on planet Earth, if we're carrying that all around in our, subconscious in terms of faulty programming and faulty wiring, all we can attract is what is in vibrational resonance to what it is that we are carrying, right? So I can get mad at their appalling behavior and attitudes all I want, but, the far more emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually mature stance would be, what's going on inside of me that's what I'm drawn to, and what's going on inside of me that is so drawn to me. Right? And when we can approach our life in that fashion and start to do that deep dive work for ourselves and start unburdening ourselves from all this garbage that we've been carrying around subconsciously, unconsciously, quite asleep for, however long we may have been carrying it, when we heal and really get in touch with our authentic core, our true self, and in my opinion, also nurture the relationship that we have with a higher power of our own understanding. When we can do that for ourselves, everything on the outside begins to shift, up level, and improve. So suddenly we find ourselves attracted to very different people, very different circumstances, very different environments. Suddenly we see trouble coming long before it has an opportunity to do us any harm. Suddenly, because we have repaired the broken relationship with ourselves and we have restored our connection to our true self, our highest guidance, our highest self, our internal wisdom, our intuition, we are now far more able to discern what is and is not going to be a healthy or good or loving or safe or nurturing person, place, or environment for us, right? When we are subconsciously being driven by our unresolved wounding and trauma, we're like a moth to flame to what is in vibrational resonance with the original family of origin wounding and trauma. So, all of that is to say, if we want to have a hope in hell of having successful dating experiences after narcissistic abuse, we have to be willing to carve out the time and spend the time, energy, effort, resources, like love yourself enough to devote the time necessary to do our own work so that we're walking out into the world actually a vibrational match to what could be successful dating, romantic relationship experiences. Until we give ourselves that gift, the likelihood that we are simply going to continue to repeat the patterns on, unconscious autopilot is incredibly high. Like, the likelihood that we will have suddenly trip over what will be a successful dating experience after narcissistic abuse if we don't actually take the time out to do our own healing and recovery work, in my opinion, slim to none. Slim to none. Metaphysical principles, like metaphysics 101, the law of attraction 101, your outside is a reflection of your inside. So you cannot expect to attract something in any area of your life, especially in the area of romantic love, but in any area of your life, if you are not actually in vibrational resonance to that which you want. So with all of that said, if you have come out of a narcissistically abusive relationship or relationships, right? Like, again, if you're anything like me, there were a series of them, right? Many adventures, many experiences, right? So if that is true for you and you're contemplating diving back into the dating arena, and if you're a sane, rational human being, you're doing so, or you're contemplating doing so with the hope and expectation and desire that you would have a successful dating experience, right? So if that's the case, I think that there are some questions that are worth pondering before you go running into the next dating experience or adventure. There are some things that you might want to sit with yourself and consider. So I have a list of questions here I'm going to run through with you, things for you to consider if you want to have a successful dating experience after narcissistic abuse. So first and foremost, are you at peace with yourself? Feel into your body. Take the time to get still. Put all the busyness down, all the distractions down, anything you might be using to self-medicate or sedate yourself. Put all of that aside and spend some time in stillness. How much personal peace do you carry? Because a new relationship, a new dating adventure is not going to fix you or heal you. It's only going to amplify what is already there. Initially, it might be very intoxicating, especially if you are in a love bombing phase, right? Like, it can be we can get good and high off of all of that, right? The pheromones, all the chemical juices get flowing, and, that can be beyond heady, to say the least, right? But you probably already know from experience that phase only lasts for so long, right? So what happens when that starts to wane? How much personal peace do you actually carry? Are you at peace with yourself? Next, are you the source of your own sense of happiness and joy? Are you the generative source from within yourself? Are you looking for something outside of yourself to validate you, to approve of you, to offer you something, safety, security, an enhanced sense of self-image, whatever it is, right? Or are you the actual generative source from deep within of your own sense of happiness and joy and love, right? Like, where are you at within yourself on your own with regards to those things? Have you healed your gaps and deficiencies with regards to your sense of self-esteem and self-love? We all have them. This isn't a criticism. Welcome to the human race on planet Earth, where, you know, experts estimate 85 to 95% of us grew up in what would be considered dysfunctional environments, dysfunctional homes, some more than others for sure, right? Varying degrees. But, you know, the fact that the vast majority of us are operating from what Ross Rosenberg calls self-love deficit disorder is, you know, I mean, it's epidemic in our culture, right? So where are you with regards to healing the deficiencies in your sense of self-love and self-esteem? Tell yourself the truth about that. Have you healed your inner child? Are you an individual who endured emotional, psychological, spiritual, sexual abuse, neglect, abandonment inside of the first 5 to 7, 10, 14 years of life? And what have you done to heal that trauma? Have you been doing a lot of bypassing, burying, pushing aside, denying, right? Or have you actually done the deep dive work to make contact with that very tender, fragile, magnificent aspect of yourself who desperately needs your attention? So have you done your inner child healing and recovery work? Because if you haven't, I can promise you this: your inner child is driving the bus of your life, not least of which your romantic life. And who that wounded inner child is attracted to is going to be an exact external representation, energetically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, to your family of origin wounding and trauma. So no fun to repeat that stuff over and over and over and over and over again. So if you're sick and tired of those patterns playing out in your life, and you're wondering why you're perpetually finding yourself in this place of having these experiences, it might be time to do some inner child healing and recovery work. Certainly if you want to have successful dating experiences after narcissistic abuse. Have you healed your inner critic? Have you healed your inner critic? So is there an aspect of you who is perpetually beating up on yourself all the live long day? That tape that's been playing in your head, those voices, those messages, that programming, that wiring, that doesn't even belong to you to begin with. It was imprinted many, many years ago, maybe even many decades ago, long before you had any say in the matter. Have you healed that stuff? Or are you continuing to beat up on yourself? Because the reality is, if that's what's going on inside of the 6 inches between your own ears, that's all you're going to be able to call into your life. And successful dating experiences are going to continue to elude you. Can you fully feel, own, and process your own feelings? Have you developed the capacity? Have you done your own inner work to the point where you are capable of standing still to fully feel, own, radical responsibility, right? Feel, own, and process your own feelings. Because if you aren't there yet, you're simply bringing your wounded inner child and your inner critic and all your unresolved issues to the dating game. And it doesn't matter how good it looks on the outside, right? No matter how good we look, we often spend so much time making sure it all looks good, right? It all looks perfect, right? All the hours in the gym and all the hours like just making it all right. But, you know, that's the packaging, and, you know, that's nice. But if the inside isn't a match to what it is that you say that you want, successful dating relationships after narcissistic abuse are going to continue to elude you. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust yourself? Do you have the capacity to trust yourself and trust your judgment? Trust what you feel in spite of what is being said. Trust what you feel, what you sense, what you know in your gut, what you know in your heart, in spite of whatever performance someone might be putting on for you in the early stages of a relationship. If you're not at the place of being able to trust yourself, you're bringing trust issues into a new dating relationship. How well is that going to work? Probably not very. Have you healed enough to be fully reconnected with your intuition, higher guidance, and higher self? This ties into, do you trust yourself? One of the benefits of working a serious healing and recovery program from codependency and narcissistic abuse, one that actually works and gets results, is that you reconnect with your highest self, your highest guidance, your intuition, and you develop the capacity to trust yourself, to be a sovereign being, resting in your own authority and self-agency. And from that place, you can attract some pretty amazing, some pretty healthy, some pretty awesome things. Until you get there, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. Is your picker or your radar still broken or impaired in any way? You know, I remember when I was starting to wake up at a certain point, you know, again, many years ago now, you know, in my 30s, where I was like looking around going, man, like what? Did I inherit a broken picker? Like I felt like my radar had been, you know, and the reality is, in particular, those of us who were narcissistically abused by, you know, a highly dysfunctional family of origin, our radar, our picker is broken, right? We have had our self-esteem and our sense of self-worth pummeled into the dirt, and it is very, very difficult to trust your reality, what you feel, your intuition, your internal guidance. Trust yourself. Right? Trust your radar, trust your spidey senses when you've been gaslit to smithereens your whole freaking life, right? When you've been on the receiving end of abusive people who are telling you this is love, right? They love you and they care about you, but they abuse you on, you know, all levels, all the ways that, you know, the things that people do, right? When that's the case, it's very difficult to trust your radar, trust your picker, right? So if there's any sense of brokenness or impaired discernment with regards to your being able to discern a thing as a thing and trust what you sense, see, feel, and hear, you'd be really well served to take some time to do some inner work to get that stuff right, so that when you go out into the world, you know, like these folks that I alluded to at the top of the video who were like, you know, taking a vow of celibacy because they've been hurt so much in their life and it's just easier to, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, rather than doing that, right? Rather than doing that, why not do, and I'm not saying it's easy and I'm not saying it's comfortable. Nobody knows better than me how not easy and how incredibly painful it can be. But living a life alone when you'd really rather be aligned with, you know, healthy, functional people, romantically or otherwise, that's not easy either. That's not pain-free either, right? So how about doing the inner work to get yourself to the place where you can trust your radar, you can trust your picker, you can trust your intuition, and you can trust yourself. Are you stuck in a cycle of repetition compulsion? Repetition compulsion. Are you stuck in a cycle of repetition compulsion, dating and falling for the same person over and over and over again, just in a different body, right? That's a sign it's time to do some work. Are you afraid to show your standards, speak your truth, or set healthy, functional limits and boundaries? If you're still in a place where you have a difficult time asserting, without being passive and without being aggressive, but asserting healthy functional limits and boundaries for yourself, and you notice that you are stuck in this repetition compulsion pattern, right? And speaking your truth is very difficult because your wounded inner child has yet to be healed and nurtured and loved all over. And therefore, he or she trembles at the thought of actually speaking up and saying no and setting a boundary. I don't like that. Please don't speak to me that way. That won't work. No, thank you. Yes, please. Whatever it is, this is what I want. This is what I feel. This is what I need. If you can't stand on the firm foundation of your own sense of self-love, self-trust, self-esteem, and assert healthy limits and boundaries for yourself, there's some work to be done long before you're going to be able to have successful dating experiences after narcissistic abuse. Are you able to say no without feeling toxic guilt and shame? And are you still susceptible to rescuing behavior? Are you the perpetual fixer, running around the world, rescuing, being the hero, looking to fix, help, serve, rescue, help, serve, and fix some more everyone else without actually doing anything to help, serve, rescue, or fix yourself? Because if that's the treadmill that you are on, forget having successful dating experiences after narcissistic abuse. That stuff must be addressed for you to get to the place where you can have successful dating experiences. Are you coming from a place of fear and scarcity? Or are you full and complete, all good and happy within yourself? Are you approaching the dating arena hoping you're going to find someone to make you happy and complete you? Or are you already happy and complete on your own, understanding that the right individual will add to that happiness without your making them responsible for it? These are really important questions to ponder before diving back into the dating arena. Are you still prone to denial and making excuses for poor behavior or disrespectful behavior and overlooking red flags? If that's still your tendency, there's work to do. Are you crystal clear about what you want? Are you crystal clear about what you need? Are you crystal clear about what are absolute deal breakers, non-negotiables for you? You're worth spending the time, investing the time, energy, effort, and resources to get clear about all of that stuff. And the truth is, if you don't actually take the time to get clear about what your deal breakers are, what your standards are, what your wish list is, what your desire list is, what your non-negotiables are, if you don't get clear about all that stuff, it's very hard to call a fuzzy picture into, like if you're very ambiguous and I'll just take whatever comes along, that's what you're going to get. But if you send a crystal clear message from a place of personal sovereignty, integrity, authority, self-love, and self-esteem, from that place, you send a clear message out into the universe about what it is that you want and what it is that you are willing to work with or not, what your deal breakers are, what you will not tolerate. When you send a crystal clear message to the universe about what it is that you are ready to call into your life while you do the work to become an energetic, emotional, vibrational, psychological, spiritual match to that, the chances of you actually calling that into your life, manifesting that into your life, are go through the roof. Like it's far more likely that you will have success when you're operating from that place of clarity within yourself. And I'm not talking about just cerebral clarity, right? Like there is some deep dive inner work that needs to take place after narcissistic abuse if we want to have a hope in hell of going out into the world and having what we would consider to be successful dating experiences that ultimately lead us to the place of lasting, happy, healthy, harmonious, peaceful, wonderful, blissful love. This was one of the biggest areas of challenge in my life for a very long time. And to give you some sense of hope, I want to let you know that at the time of this recording, I am 6 years into what is without question the happiest, healthiest, most harmonious, peaceful, loving, safe, nurturing relationship I could ever have conceived of. Everything I ever wanted and then some. I finally manifested into my life. And that's not 2 weeks ago. We're coming up on 6 years now, right? And I don't say that to brag. I say that to inspire. For a girl who came from what she came from, for a girl who came through what she came through, for a girl who had a repetition compulsion of one high spectrum destructive narcissist after another, in spite of all of the best efforts, in spite of all the churches, in spite of all the Bible study, in spite of all the therapists, in spite of all the Tony Robbins workshops and events and seminars, in spite of all the spiritual and other personal development workshops, seminars, events, etc. In spite of all of that stuff, in spite of all the personal development books, in spite of all of the stuff, I was in that place of this repetition compulsion, right? And finally, I surrendered and got real about doing the real deep dive inner work, because I had tried everything else and nothing else worked. And although all of it had value, there was a lot of bypassing that was going on, because there was an aspect of me that was terrified to go inside and feel the full brunt of all of the pain that I had been running from for a very long time. And therefore, everywhere I went, there I was, carrying that pain subconsciously and manifesting that pain externally in my romantic life. Nothing changed until I went inside and did the deep dive work. If we're looking to have successful dating experiences after narcissistic abuse, in my opinion, this is a must. And I promise you the work is worth it. The work is worth it. Who you become in the process of falling in love with you first, because that's really what it's all about, right? Falling in love with you first, that journey, you take that with you forever, wherever you go. It is a journey well worth taking. So my friends, again, if successful dating experiences are what you really desire, what your heart really desires after narcissistic abuse, take the time to do your work one way or another. You're worth it. You're absolutely worth it. My friends, I hope you got some value out of this. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to drop a like and a comment. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos throughout the week. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, we do have some spots available in the calendar this week for the free one-to-one consult with either myself or a member of my team for the Freedom Class program. The Freedom Class program is my 8-week transformational coaching program, specifically designed to help you heal and recover from codependency and narcissistic abuse. All the deep dive work that I've been talking about in this video is what the Freedom Class is really all about, and then some. So if that's of interest to you, there's a link in the description below where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-on-one consultation with us. And with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. As always, I will leave you with this. Know your value. Know your value and unlock your freedom. Much love. Bye for now.